Hey everyone, we're getting started. Good morning. All right. Good morning, everyone. I do want to iterate. Come to the front. Come to the front. We don't bite. This is going to be as interactive as you make it. And I'm here because I want your guys' opinions. Okay, so this is a book launch, but it's also a discussion and it's a brainstorm on better decentralized ways for humans and AIs to cooperate and for fighting existential risks. So I welcome you all to move to the front and to sit in the little bit of space that is still available there. Okay, good morning, everyone. So who here was at the DeSci session yesterday? Hands up. Yeah. Do we have Shadi and Eugene here? Yes, over there. Lovely. Okay, so if you have any more questions on the DeSci program, those two guys are there to help you. And so Eugene, Shadi, and I basically joined forces and are hosting this pretty collaborative workshop track on different types of DeSci sessions together. So yesterday we started off with kind of like a cacophony of amazing talks on different ways of how to do decentralized science better. Today, I will be talking a little bit about the risks that are associated with some of the science and technologies that we're developing and how we can cooperate better across humans and AIs. And then tomorrow, we'll be doing a tech tree session. Aaron, where are you? Over there. So Aaron is our scientific director at Foresight. And if you're into tech trees, DAOs, and other types of stuff to fund basic science and research, then tomorrow's session at 9 a.m. is for you. I know it's early, but we will make it worth it for you guys. Okay, cool. So who here would classify themselves as a techno optimist? Okay, that's pretty good. I like it. Who here works in cryptography? Okay, who here works in cryptocommerce? So let's call it cryptoeconomics. Okay, that's also a few. Who here thinks that AI timelines to artificial general intelligence are longer than 15 years away? Okay, who here is worried about biotech risks? Who here is worried about nuclear risks? Okay, cool. Who thinks that we can actually set up structures with which humans and AIs can cooperate in a decentralized way? AI DAOs, you name it. Yeah, okay, yeah, good. Okay, I think we're ready. We're ready to start the session. All right, so in a nutshell, I'm Allison. I'm the president and CEO of Foresight Institute. Foresight Institute is a nonprofit to advance early stage stuff that is too niche, too early stage, and too transdisciplinary for other organizations to take on. We focus on a few sub-technologies. One is biotech and health extension, so longevity and rejuvenation. One is molecular machines, so think all the way to the Drexler dream of atomically precise manufacturing. One is intelligent cooperation, so that's the technologies that many of you guys are working on, so decentralized private computing, and doing that across folks and across AIs. And then neurotech, improving cognition, so if you're into brain-computer interfaces or even whole brain emulations, we're trying to get these futures faster. And finally, space expanding outward. So this is anything from more of the low orbit flights, asteroid mining, but all the way into, I think our first kickoff session for this meeting was on mining black holes. So we're really getting all the way out there. Our approach is that we have virtual seminars in each of these meetings, which are with small expert groups of people working in these areas that cooperate more on the sci-fi stuff, which they don't otherwise get to talk about in their legacy institutions. We are also doing tech trees to map these areas. Why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this because we are really bullish on the future. Like, we really want a long-term future and we want it to go well. But on the same time, I think if we don't come up with approaches for how this future goes well in a decentralized way, then there will be other forces that come in and will either take some of these technologies to centralize power and lock in our future, or we won't have any future at all because we'll be encountering a variety of risks that I think we need to deal with if we want these positive futures to go well. And so for that, I'm super excited that we launched a book. And so today is the first day that we will be discussing this book. And the book is called Gaming the Future, Technologies for Intelligent Voluntary Cooperation. And this is a book that was written in a pretty strange format, in the sense that we got together and we're basically like, look, if we don't, as a community of folks in favor of decentralized technology development, come up with a few approaches for how we can make long-term futures go well, then we won't have any skin in the game, and we won't really have a say in how these futures pay out. So what we did is we wrote a book, and then instead of just publishing it, we actually had a year worth of sessions with our Intelligent Cooperation group. So those were a bunch of people working in crypto, in machine learning, and so forth, in which we invited the people that are already working on these technologies, in which we invited them to give keynote presentations on their individual technologies that they're working on, and so that we can then push them forward. And so you see that this book is written as almost like a seminar summary of individual people whose work we wanted to feature. Okay, so you all have next to you like slides with a QR code. So if you want to follow the book along as we discuss the book and discuss different Gitcoin bounties for how I want you guys to tell me how these features can go well, then there's a QR code there. If you open it up, you get directed straight to the book. So this will be extremely interactive. Today we're launching the book and the book club. If you find these sessions interesting, if you are into making these technologies that you're working on and extrapolating outward how they can go well, then I invite you to claim the Gitcoin bounties. Every one of these chapters starts with a Gitcoin bounty, and we're going to go through 3 of them today. But I also invite you to join our book club. So many of the keynote presenters that you see here, we invited for a book club that starts on May 1st. Once a week, we're going to go through the individual chapters, and we are going to discuss which technologies we can further. I want to thank everyone, and especially our keynote presenters who have done incredible presentations already on this. Anyone from Robin Hanson, Balaji, Vernon Smith, Tyler Cohen, Audrey Tang. We had a few really, really great presentations already. Alex Taborg-Zuko, who I think was on a fireside chat here the other day, but also lots of folks that are familiar from you. I think Patrick Joyce, I saw him earlier here. We had a fantastic session with him and Tyler on VidaDAO and Research Hub. And so we're really trying to basically take the technologies that you guys are working on, and we're trying to extrapolate outward of where they would be going in 5 to 10 years after the futures that you guys are working on, and how we can use them to make futures go well on the long run. So if you're into this kind of stuff, I invite you to claim the Gitcoin bounties, and to join our book club on this. But today, let's make this quite interactive. I want to read out to you, maybe just to start, why are we writing this book? Every one of us came to this book with a different opinion. But Mark Miller, who's an early cypherpunk and who's a co-author of this book, I think he has the best story of how he came to realize that these technologies are pretty interesting. Why do we focus on technologies in this book? I want to read you out a really quick soundbite, because I think it actually makes sense to talk about decentralized approaches to existentialism this way. So, luckily, our recent history includes an illustrative case, the timeline of the deployment of modern cryptography. Cryptography has a long, fascinating history, but here we follow a particular thread beginning in August 1977 with the publication of Martin Gardner's mathematical games column in Scientific American. Gardner wrote about a groundbreaking discovery, the RSA, Rumish Shamir Edelman public key algorithm. Mark Miller, the co-author, has a personal history in the battle over cryptography. In 1976, Mark apprenticed himself to Ted Nelson, creator of the Xanadu hypertext system. They shared a vision of a global hypertext publishing system as a censorship-free liberating force. But they knew that without the right architecture, any such system would be corrupted into a tool of 1984 style oppression. Before the invention of modern cryptography, they could not solve this puzzle. Mark was an avid reader of Scientific American and always went straight to Gardner's column. After reading about the RSA discovery, he called Ted at an ungodly hour and joyously proclaimed, "Ted, we can prevent the Ministry of Truth." They immediately set out to get a copy of the RSA publication. In those days, you could not simply download scientific publications. Instead, they mailed a request for a copy and waited. Nothing arrived. The US intelligence community had suppressed publication to preserve their ability to spy on all conversations. Mark decided to take action. His mission began with a trip to the MIT campus. As a 20-year-old computer geek, he was welcomed in the tribe, and before long, he had the paper in hand. He knew it was critical to distribute it far and wide to counter the attempted suppression. Fully aware of the risk, he gave copies to his most trusted friends, telling them, "If I disappear, make sure this gets out." While handling the paper only with gloves, he started making copies, going to several different copy shops. He mailed copies anonymously to technology-minded hobbyist groups and magazines. In 1978, the US intelligence dropped the attempt to suppress the RSA paper. Mark will never know if his personal actions made any difference. But his experience made the stakes clear. Technologies of freedoms are worth fighting for and building. And so this is why we focus so much on technologies in this book. And so we're getting pretty practical, and that's why I want your feedback all today. And we're going to go into a bit of the bounties in just a second. So again, I welcome you to subscribe to the book, and I welcome you to watch the seminar summers if you so please. But in a nutshell, just to get us ready for the first bounty, we start the book with the idea that values differ. Values differ already across humans, and values will differ increasingly if we have a decentralized future in which also AIs will be part of the mix. And so for that, instead of trying to have to align civilization on one particular future, we need to set civilization up for an architecture that allows cooperation when our goals align, and otherwise independence when they don't. And that's what cryptocommerce technologies can do really extremely well. They allow cooperation without vulnerability. And so that is what we lay out the first chapter. We lay out why values differ, why they will increasingly drift as we get more diverse across civilization. And we lay out why Pareto preferred negotiation is important and where we can go if we do it correctly. The second one is on Skim the Manual. So here we introduce the types of cooperative arrangements that you all super value, which are on the one hand, voluntarism, the decline of violence led to voluntary shelling points emerge, and then finally it led to the emergence of more and more complex cooperative institutions. And here we go basically through the evolution of prices, of other types of market institutions, why they're important, and then crucially all the way in the end, how we can now build them up with better cryptography. We had Balaji present on how already we can put structures in place in which the new types of cooperative institutions we're building can already be pretty crypto native, and we can already also have them trickle in to the real world. And so I invite you, if you're interested in this, check out basically our very quick blip of history of why civilization made progress and how it is that we can improve these technologies with voluntary cooperation, how it is that we can bind AIs into the mix. But now I want to get to the first bounty. And so now I want your guys' input a bit. So in the third chapter, we go into, okay, look, if we agree that values differ, right? And they have done for a pretty long time, and we won't align on values soon. If we agree that technologies of cooperation are really important in the face of value differences, if we agree on how we came to where we are today, and that's by better cooperative institutions, then how do we now scale these technologies up into crypto space, and how do we make sure that humans can cooperate with them better? And this is where I think, many of the sessions that we have here, even at Gitcoin at the Shelling Point conference, are super important and pretty valuable. We start with free information. And so basically we go through prediction markets, replication markets, and everything that we talked about yesterday, and how it is that we can better set those up. Then we talk about tools for openness. So how can we build a better decentralized web, decentralized social media networks, and so forth. We talk about how can we create, using cryptocommerce, better property rights using the blockchain, right? And that goes all the way from NFTs, but also we need to get around to doing space-based property rights, right? If we want to do asteroid mining, man, we really need to get out there and experiment with how it is that we can do these cryptographic title registry for space property rights. And so we go through a bunch of different ones of these, but now where I want your input is the last, I think, and most important one is contracts, right? Contracts already exist. There's already a few contracts out there that allowed us to cooperate in super rich ways, but we now need to upgrade the types of smart contract architectures that many of you cherish so much to actually have more, let's say, exotic approaches in which we can cooperate. We go through a few of them. For example, what smart contracts do really well is they create templates. Smart contracts are incredibly expensive to produce for the first time, especially if you don't know how to code yet very well, but they get much easier over time. So the first one that's amazing are templates. Second one is split contracts. Who here has an idea of what a split contract could be? Yes? Shout it out.
So the way to split, for instance, a payment into several parties.
Yes. And here we go through one particular one which has a human in the loop. Basically a contract that on the one hand is not entirely automated, but where at part of the contract you have a human in the loop, and you can even have an arbitrator that acknowledges when a contract has gone wrong. And we go through a few others here, including split contracts, but also a video contracts. Who here has read Nick Szabo's writing on video contracts? Anyone? It's really good. Basically, he talks about the fact that, look, back in the days, people made contracts by shaking hands and have an actual meeting of the mind. Now we're pretty bad at this, and we're capturing like a really rich cooperative agreement and a stupid, dumb paper contract. So how can we get video contracts back in the game and actually have video contracts installed in parts of our cooperative structures so that future arbitrators have more when they try to actually arbitrate the decisions if we want to bring them to a dispute. Next one up, who here knows about, who is working in a DAO? Who is part of a DAO? Okay, so that's a pretty vanilla one of all of the ones that we have out there. Many of you know why they're important, so I won't go in there now. But safe to say, yesterday we had a few fantastic panels on them. Then assurance contracts. Who here has heard of assurance contracts? No one? Okay, Alex Tabarrok's assurance contract. You should really check them out. It's basically, an assurance contract is what Kickstarter is based on. So basically, if you want to do public goods funding, but you don't necessarily know whether your contribution makes a difference, an assurance contract basically states that you only fund something when enough other people fund it too, so that that thing gets funded. But there's still a dead weight loss in the sense that it's not always super, it's not always super relevant for folks to fund it, or they may shy back from funding it. A dominant assurance contract is something more strong. It basically pays a premium if you're the first one committing to funding this thing. So if it doesn't get funded, the first people that wanted to fund it get a premium back, right? So those are dominant assurance contracts. We had Glenn Whale discuss social technology for a political economy of increasing returns. Who here knows about quadratic funding? Who is on Gitcoin? I'm sure you all know. Okay, great. I don't need to go into that. And finally, and most importantly, I think, let's expand the cryptography toolkit, right? Who here works with zero knowledge proofs? A few, okay. Who here knows about homomorphic encryption? A few. Who here knows about federated learning? Okay, good. Then you also know about homomorphic encryption, I'm sure. And attribute planning and so forth. So we need to get around to having better ways in which we can allow humans to cooperate privately. And so we had Zuko come and Howard Hu from Aleo and just discuss a few ways in which zero knowledge proofs can already unlock a few of the private arrangements that we otherwise couldn't do. So why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this because I now want you guys to tell me something new. So now I laid out to you all the things that are in this chapter. And now I want you guys to help me claim this Gitcoin bounty. So if you're on the QR code and you want to scroll up, all the way up on the top, you have a Gitcoin bounty that that can be claimed. And I now want you guys actually to discuss with your neighbor, take 3 minutes actually, and talk about what is the cooperative institutions in crypto commerce that you're most proud of. If someone's like, hey, look, why do we need all of those crypto technologies? What do you tell them? What is the one cooperative interaction that crypto commerce unlocks that really you couldn't do before? If you come up with something great, then I invite you to please, please, please claim the Gitcoin bounty. Here you have it. What's the most important crypto commerce tools to help human cooperate? If someone's deeply skeptical of crypto, what do you tell them why we need this? Okay, let's introduce yourselves to your neighbor, guys, and take 3 minutes to discuss, and then I want to get a shout out from you guys. Go.
Sorry that it took a while there. The Wi-Fi crapped out because so many people. I guess.
Yeah.
Have any questions with this?
No, figure it out how to do it. Thank you. Okay, guys, you have 1 minute left. Okay, guys, finish the thought. Now I want to hear from you. Okay, everyone. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Okay, great. We don't need to do this anymore. All right, lovely. So anyone, a shout out. If someone is deeply crypto skeptical and is like, why do we need this stuff? What do you tell them? What's the #1 cooperative institution that you believe in that we can do in crypto? And maybe not in a different format. Not all at once. Yes, over there. Say more. Okay, good. Another one. Yes, over there. Louder, louder.
Freedom of pursuing your inner potential and what makes you excited.
Yeah, freedom to cooperate. Correct. Anyone else? Yes. Accurately pricing public good. Yeah, nice one. Very nice. Are you referring to retroactive public goods funding or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess people are just like the first start, public funding is the first start at that, and it's a problem that we can't, we have all these externalities and public goods and externalities, and at the same time, be able to give values to the things that are valuable and don't get funded, and be able to charge for the things that aren't able to be, aren't currently able to be charged for as externalities, actually build market.
Lovely. You have a great pitch for this. Yes.
Making systems transparent.
Making systems transparent. Yes. And we will talk about this later when we talk about AI, but you could also do mixed transparent systems where part of them are mixed, part of them are transparent, not all of them are, which is important if you want to cooperate with AIs, where you want some transparency for accurately being able to game theoretically model them. Yes, Tina.
I think it helps you define a human-to-human or human-to-machine interface, right, as part of your organization, so you can transparently define.
Come up with you. Come on, guys, let's get this going. Yeah.
Okay, so what I think the smart contract can do to help you precisely define the interaction between the two roles in an organization, whether it's like between a human and another human, or a human and the actual organization. You can precisely define the ability to do a certain action within an organization. Let's say it's a vote, like a board of directors situation. Or it could be like, hey, you have a path to a career path policy within an organization that gives you elevated permissions over time, right? And that can all be transparently laid out and agreed upon, so everybody knows the rules of the game before they enter it, right? And then pieces of that can be automated.
Yeah, and it can be mixed so that you maybe have something like an iterative contract, right? But you check in or we'll go to the iterated rounds of the game. Yes? Oh, here, come on.
So to any sensible person, I would always emphasize that it's ultimately up to humans to think about the moral values. Because I agree with Bitcoin and what I think is maybe one of the really good things that we can point to. But we can easily misuse that technology the same way to set up some sort of dystopian slave labor market, with that transparency, especially actually. So it's always up to the humans that are designing the system, building the system, and using the system to think about how it aligns with their moral values. And you can never outsource that to a technology.
Okay, nice one. So it's a cautionary tale, or something like this. Anyone else? What's the number one crypto innovation? Over here.
For someone skeptical, it's the ability to independently create a scarcity and value system outside of the bias of the previous systems like fiat, because ultimately if the existing oligarchs have control over the issuance of currency and data, you can never really define your own kind of destiny as a society.
Okay, thank you. And there was something here. Come on up.
So I would say a combination of three things. One of them is the DeFi matrix, DeSci DeFi matrix, where every asset is liquidly tradable. On top of that, zero-knowledge proofs, where everything you know becomes protected from prying eyes. And an additional layer to this is the fusion style that Fusion was proposing, where wallets have a way to contribute to public goods, so we can actually stay locked.
Great. And obviously, I want to say DeSci. So this came from DeSci Foundation. Yesterday, we already had a lovely chat about this on the panel. But DeSci is in the book. You guys are presented there. And Eugene, when is your session? We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, so we're going to have a session right after this one, right upstairs. And actually, Chris was just talking. You'll be one of the 7 groups presenting their DeSci classroom.
Okay, lovely. So we're getting pretty actionable here. Anyone else want to shout another one out? Oh, wow. Now we're really keeping it coming here.
So for me, the biggest thing is that blockchains are inherently transparent and therefore composable. Like somebody built something and any person can have its own idea how to build on top of it. And that is something which really didn't exist before.
Lovely. Okay, and over here. Esty, sir?
Okay, so I think it's possible that it allows us to stay generalists or continue to be generalists and increase that even without relying on centralized institutions to provide the things that we're not specializing in.
Very nice. Yeah, I love it. Okay, over here. Yeah, come on, first. Okay, so maybe up to 3 more, and then we get to the next voting.
So this is to help humans cooperate. Right now, even with Gitcoin, how it has recently blocked people from Iran from using it. So what we need is actually, platforms that are run by DAOs that are not attached to any corporations at all. So you don't have to basically impose these geopolitical rules that are preventing humans from collaborating as like a species.
I love it. Yeah, cross-jurisdictionality and immutability for cooperation. Very, very important. Okay, cool. Good. Okay, wow, we had no shilling of individual crypto projects. Very confused. Okay, I'll stop the mic. All right, cool. So that one went well. So now, basically, to bring you up to speed, we talked about all the ways in which humans can cooperate better using crypto. So now, let's turn a bit to the dark side. Even though in the book, what we're doing, there's one other chapter that is still along the way for getting to XRIS, and that is a gradual transition. So we all just laid out this wonderful, magical cryptocommerce future that is extremely advanced, in which we all cooperate with each other in a massively decentralized, distributed way. But of course, we're not there yet. And so how do we get there? So the next chapter is all about how do we co-evolve, cooperate, and compete, and ultimately out-compete the current existing system. And we borrow a term from biology, which is a genetic takeover, in which a new system evolves within and grows within and ultimately out-competes and like the old system. And the important thing about there is to know that we don't just want an entire takeover of a crypto system, right? But ultimately it's a co-evolution. So the existing system really informs the new system that we're building, right? So I think we will gradually, we won't have code absolutism, we won't have legal absolutism, we'll have something nice in between. We'll go through a few layers on how we can change the rules without relying on the rules. So operating in the illegal spaces. We talk about limits to immutability in assassination markets. We talk about revisiting legitimacy and how whether the DAO bug and the fork that occurred was legitimate or not. And ultimately we talk about evolving cryptocommerce. So who here knows about proof of location? Proof of location? Okay, come to the front. Why is it awesome?
Because you can prove that someone is in the location and probably not a bot.
Yes, and so that means that you can be massively decentralized. So you already have, you all know about civil attacks, right? You all know that individual nodes can get shut down by a nation state. If you have proof of location, you can incentivize people to do computation in very different jurisdictions, and by that already get much more robust against being shut down. So we need much more of these abilities to actually decentralize. We talked a lot about basically like blockchain interoperability. We need not just one blockchain to rule them all, but we need many different ones. And so this one is like an interim chapter of just like, how the hell do we get there? And so if you're interested, I'll basically invite you to check it out. Now let's get into existentialist territory. What is the number one existentialist that you're worried about? Shout it out.
Climate change.
Climate change. Corruption. Corruption. Scarcity.
Plutocracy.
Plutocracy. What else? AI. Superbugs.
Overpopulation.
What? Overpopulation? I'm worried about underpopulation, but here we go. Okay, what else? Oh no, the gamma radiation. Yes. Yes, even though at that point we would have been quite far advanced already. So, okay, anyone else? Okay, good. Well, many of the ones that we discussed haven't even been mentioned yet. Nuclear weapons, man, this is a really fucking obvious one. Sorry, excuse my language, but who here knows about Daniel Ellsberg, Doomsday Machine? He leaked the Pentagon Papers now 51 years ago, and we had invited him to tell us just how we are really not safe from nuclear weapons. We have withering away computer security, and our nukes are based on this computer security. We had one man at the bottom over the past few years that maybe should not have been entrusted with this button, and so forth. We have robotic violence, man. Lethal autonomous weapons, they are here. And it's not only, who here saw the Boston Dynamic Christmas movie by which the Boston Dynamic robots dance in these beautiful ways? Was that nice or was it terrifying? With a very different soundtrack, it could have been equally terrifying. So I think robotic violence is, much closer than we think. Biotechnology risks. I don't want to belabor this point, but I just want to read out. DACWay was established by the US military to work on chemical and biological weapons. In 2015, it accidentally distributed samples containing live anthrax spores instead of the expected inactivated spores to US labs across 8 states. This actually happened, okay? So we're really not sure. And if we know one thing from COVID, then it's just like how quickly these things spread, right? And so we need to get around to biotech risk, nanotech risk. So nanotech is the one technology that Foresight was founded on 30 years ago, and it is a little bit further out. But we need to get around to nanotech risk too, because asking what atomically precise manufacturing systems can do with materials is much like asking what computers can do with information. So at that point, we really want secure systems in place that can help us defend against these technologies. So why am I telling you this? Because this is trap number one. So whenever we talk about technological proliferation and the risk that it poses, many people go to trap two, which is okay, look, we have a bunch of different technologies that are proliferating, that are getting cheaper, but what can we do against them? Well, we need certainly one actor that can help us and that can keep us safe. And this actor is often proposed to be a governmental actor. And so oftentimes what we then veer into is trap number two. Trap number two is one very powerful governmental actor that has ultimate ability to enforce actions. And we need to also steer away from those because they come with their own risks. And I think that, this is ultimately what we need to come up with as a community that's working in decentralized technologies. We need to come up with decentralized approaches for keeping our future safe, because if not, we will have more of a regulatory and more of a governmental focused approach. We are already seeing pervasive surveillance. I think if anything became clear, that it really just how quickly surveillance is getting a foothold in our civilization. I mean, who here isn't filling out forms every single day with all of their different private information, even just for checking in here, right? And we're just like, well, this is just what we have to get around to now with COVID, I guess. And is this going to go away? I don't think so. And so here, just one soundbite. Google's "don't be evil" dynamics led to an internal collective sense that employees would not perform evil actions. Yet those good employees let Google gather a very dangerous amount of accurate information on people in one vulnerable place. There were multiple attempts to move Gmail from plain text to encrypted ciphertext, but they never succeeded. Even if Google does not abuse its power, its existence is a tremendous temptation. For Google, external abuse has occurred both when it was hacked by foreign nation state and when it was served with US national security letters demanding its customers' information. Such national security letters are unconstitutional and a severe violation of democratic accountability, but they still happen because having many people's plain text email at one company is too juicy a target. We must prevent situations occurring in which those who are not evil can still be used for evil. So let's not centralize data in one place. We have robotic enforcement coming. That's the whole lethal autonomous weapon space. And so we ultimately need to design a system, and that's what I want to get into a little bit of brainstorming with you guys on again, that can navigate both traps, right? We need a system that can navigate the traps from small kill all, so just plain technological proliferation, and the technology is basically like a small number of actors being able to use them to cause massive harm. But we also need to get away from having one nation state actor come in and saving us, because let's face it, one actor, it's not really one actor, right? Like one large actor is composed of many individual actors. And by having them keep us safe, we're also only corrupting them and for competing for more power that doesn't necessarily keep us more safe. So we need a trap navigation system. We have a few here that we propose. One is thin thread. So who here has heard about NSA's thin thread? Okay, one person at least. What was it? Yeah, it was an encrypted, so basically the NSA gathered a bunch of people's data. William Binney came in and wanted that system to go safe. So they installed an encrypted surveillance system that basically would only release the information that they monitored when certain tripwires got triggered, that a FISA code had to monitor. And so there you could really create accountable, more of an accountable and checks and balance system to doing surveillance in a multipolar way. And we can now already do this. There's now a bunch of really great approaches, from federated learning to homomorphic encryption and so forth, that allow you to do not surveillance, but surveillance. So basically where multiple actors monitor each other in a privacy preserving way, using encryption, and only information gets released when certain tripwires are triggered. We need to come up with these systems, because otherwise we're just going to have surveillance. Finally, we need to have an open source arms design. So the weapons that we design, and if robotics enforcement is coming, we need an open source approach to arms design by which we can hold each other in check as we're designing these systems. The Oracle problem will become much more important as we have increasingly automated systems that make decisions about life and death. So we need to get freaking around to solving the Oracle problem. And ultimately, I could already start doing this today with drones with body caps. So that's the idea, is that any type of drone and any type of automated system that is already being able to lethally impose actions on people should really wear body caps, by which after they crash, we can then monitor what the internal workings were and whether they were corrupted or not. Okay, cool. So now with me having given you a few of the ideas, I want you guys to again talk to your neighbor. Next Bitcoin bounty is, da-da-da-da. What's the most important crypto tool we can use to defend against existential risks? So now bring me all of your cryptography knowledge, bring me all of your decentralized cooperation knowledge. Discuss for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we do a shout out. What can we do to defend against existential risk in a decentralized way? Go.
So sorry if I'm trying not to distract you, but trying to make sure that
I will take it there. All right, guys, 2 more minutes, and then I want you guys to come up front. Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks for the discussions. Okay, clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Clap. Okay, great. All right, who wants to kick us off? Go up front, Lexi.
We said redundancy, accountability, consensus.
Okay, say more than 3 words.
More than that, okay. Redundancy, like preventing a single point of failure. Consensus, like, I mean, avoiding like, a single dictatorship, authoritarian kind of vote thing. And then, accountability, transparency, which we kind of, covered in the last one, so.
Very nice.
Okay.
Yeah, love it. Very cool. Okay, come on. Maybe also say your name, that we know how to.
Hi, I'm Josh. So we were just discussing the application of zero knowledge proofs, and that if an entity could cryptographically sort of prove that what they're saying is true is in fact true, that could go a long way into actually enabling cooperation and trust, especially between governments, obviously with sort of like nuclear war being maybe one of the biggest existential threats. But then we were discussing the difficulty would be potentially getting sort of data from the real world, like meat space, and actually translating that onto digital area and creating a proof from that.
Yeah, man, Oracle problem all over again. There was, yes, come to the front. There was a really interesting paper, one of my favorite papers. It's called Recent Development in Cryptography, and with recent I mean the last 30 years, and how they apply to existentialism. And they have this one terrifying example of an automated doomsday machine by which you can credibly commit that you will perform a not so nice action if someone else does too, and you can do so by automating that entire thing. Okay, good.
So I would say transparency. The analogy that I think of is if you think of back to the olden days on the battlefield, when two parties were fighting each other, one on the losing side becomes aware of their defeat, that their defeat is certain. And if they keep on fighting, they're all going to die. So what do? They came up with a standard called the white flag. And they would raise that white flag and they would say, well, they wouldn't say it, they would communicate it by raising the white flag. We surrender. I think of how does this translate to the blockchain? The white flag is a sign. Imagine that you could put signs on hospitals or other neutral organizations like that to help drones and other technologies not attack these neutral organizations. Obviously, that doesn't guarantee, that it's going to keep those places safe, but putting more data on the blockchain that is publicly accessible by everyone can help protect hospitals and other organizations like that.
But isn't Al Qaeda already hiding in hospitals mostly and using civilians as shields?
No guarantee.
Okay, no guarantee. Good. All right. Yep.
So I would say crypto economics and programmable money, like money systems are very similar all over the world. And if we look what people are trying to do in crypto space, for instance, I will share one protocol which is Olympus DAO, which did this programmable central bank, which might work, might not work, but it's like completely different approach. So I believe that by programmable money we can create incentives to make some things happen, which with the standard systems are simply impossible.
Very nice. Okay. One more. Okay. Cool.
Hey, I'm Crypto Zach, and I think that community ownership over all of the major industries that can affect each other and that can impose an existential risk on the rest of the world is super important to what or to like sustainability, long-term sustainability of humanity. So what I mean, or to expand on that, let me just get my dossier. If we have, all right, so what I like to do is use DAOs to set up unions, and unions are a combination of political and economic unions, and where people can join their DAOs and receive benefits from it. They can opt into DAOs, as long as they follow the rules of the DAO. And one example rule of the DAO can be, if you're a member of this DAO, you can't be a member of that DAO. And it can get a lot more complicated from there. But and DAOs can actually they can have members that align people's ethical and moral philosophies. They can participate in the same industries, you can have two different DAOs in the same exact industries, but with different philosophical goals. So I think that by elucidating to everybody what type of organization they're a part of, what goals they're actually supporting, I think that humanity will come to make better decisions because people have a better idea of what they're actually doing.
Well, you could also say something that we often is kind of the opposite of that, of like a kind of like polycentrism across DAOs, in the sense that trade was very pacifying for the world because many different people suddenly were cooperating with each other, and the more cooperation you have across DAOs, maybe the more peaceful different communities are also across each other. Okay, cool. What else? No? Oh yeah, okay, one more, and then we move on to incorporating AI into this framework. So
one of the best things we can do is increasing the payoff of trade to decrease the payoff of violence. And one of the ways we can do that is by banking the bankless and creating fluid and liquid methods to trade across borders, across the whole world, so that the interests of the individual takes precedence over the needs of the hegemons.
oh wow, we're getting the first round of applause today. Lovely. Okay, cool. Well, so if this wasn't already out there enough, let's take the last week and let's incorporate AIs into this mix. So in the book, again, we have another chapter that is between this, which is defending against digital threats. I won't go into this now, but Mark Miller, who is one of our co-authors, he is cypherpunk, but also is one of the main computer security experts that I think really has one of the good strategies in place on how we can make computer security actually something that is applicable and is usable. And so here we basically in this chapter just go through how messed up our computer security infrastructure already is, and how not only insecure but insecurable our foundations are, and how dangerous this is with things like the electric grid being deeply dependent on this, and how quickly this could really exacerbate into more of a catastrophic risk than we may think. We also discuss a few systems like who knows of SEL4. Okay, check out SEL4. Still insanely underfunded. One university group in Sydney is working on SEL4. No idea how they survive, but this is, I think, our best shot at computer security. And this is Gernot Heiser presenting on SEL4. Please check them out. They're really, really fantastic. We need better computer security. Also, cryptocommerce, guys. Like, I think if Bitcoin has told us one thing, then that it is like a few billion-dollar bug bounty, in the sense that systems that are being built in the cryptocommerce ecosystem, insecure crap dies early. There's lots of bounties always for building insecure systems. So I think just the general cryptocurrency system is already a good system by which we can build more secure foundations. So if you're interested in computer security, or if you're not interested, you should still check this out, because it is quite terrifying where we're headed to now. But nevertheless, in cryptocurrency, we can build better systems. Okay, let's move to AI. So who here knows about the threat of a more of a unipolar AI development? So like one artificial general intelligence that basically performs a strategic takeover of the world and eventually comes to rule us all. Who here is mildly worried about this with the way that current technology is being developed? Yes? Okay. Well, if you're not sufficiently terrified, then I would welcome you to check out some of the existential risk literature out there. That is certainly something that people are extremely worried about at the moment. Why is one unitary AI, or even one company controlling one incredibly powerful AI, so dangerous? It's pretty dangerous because what we started this the book with, we have value diversity. We don't agree on a value set. Even if we could agree on a value set across humans, it's really hard to actually accurately communicate this to one artificial intelligent agent that shares nothing of our cognitive architecture and nothing of our evolutionary upbringing. It arose under very, very different evolutionary constraints. Trying to figure out what our objective function is across civilization and then communicating this to one AI agent is really, really, really tough. Also, I don't even think we'll necessarily get there because of first strike instabilities. Can you tell me what would China do if they thought that Google was very close to developing one unipolar AI agent that would rule the world? What would China do? Not destroy it, steal it? Steal it, destroy it? Right? We have all the other existential risks of robotic violence, nuclear, and so forth on the table. And for that, it doesn't even have to be actually real. China just has to think that the US is very close to this, right? So we have this insane first strike instability, which we really shouldn't get near to whatsoever. And we're getting insanely near to this. There's already AI race dynamics that are emerging between China and the US, and they are mildly terrifying. So how can we do better? Well, in this chapter, we basically propose to extend the cryptographic infrastructure that we have laid out throughout the entire book to, in a decentralized way, incorporate AI agents into the cryptocommerce ecosystem in as much of a decentralized way as possible. And Nick Szabo actually wrote about that a long, long time ago. And who here knows about the Agoric papers? Agoric Open Systems papers? So Mark Miller, our co-author, he wrote them with Eric Drexler, who co-founded Foresight. And they are about building a human AI market ecology by which we can extend the systems of signals, markets, institutions, and prices to incorporate artificial intelligences into the mix in a decentralized way. We won't go through this paper now, but it takes inspiration from the US Constitution, so doing a system of checks and balances. So how can we actually do this? What are a few of the technologies that are becoming incredibly important? Who here has heard about federated learning? Why is it great? If you want to step to the microphone, why is federated learning amazing?
Because it does not train the machine learning data model in a centralized data store.
Exactly. And that's really freaking amazing because it allows mutually distrusting parties to cooperate on data. And so that's a pretty good re-decentralizing force, because instead of one agent needing to control all of your data, it can be mutually distrusting parties that can already compute without actually sharing their data, but nevertheless benefiting from their data. So federated learning, major fan of this, and Georgis Kassis from Open Mind. Who here knows Open Mind? One plug for Open Mind. They do fantastic work on privacy preserving machine learning. And so if you're into this type of stuff, I welcome you to check out their work. Finally, Principal Agent Alliance, the blockchain. So we basically talk about like a pretty, let's say, advanced system by which we can extend the current crypto system that you guys are working in to incorporate artificial intelligences. Why are blockchains relevant? Because on blockchains, you can already make system transparent, so you can actually know that how they say they will interact is actually how they will interact. You can create systems that you can read the code, and you can trust that this is actually how they're going to engage in an interaction. So that's why blockchains are, I think, really interesting for this, because you can build AI entities that are actually provably secure in this manner. Finally, one that I want to throw out there before I want to hear from you guys are AI DAOs. So who here has read up, who here knows about Fred Ersam's writing on AI DAOs, Ali Yaya's decentralized autonomous marketplaces, or Trent McConaughey's really long medium blog post series on AI DAOs? Okay, if you haven't read up on this, I really, really, really applaud you to, I welcome you to check out their writing. I think that when we come back here in 5 years, we will talk a lot about AI DAOs. So I really think that this is where what we as a cryptocommerce ecosystem have to put against centralized AI actors. Decentralized autonomous marketplaces are a way in which, instead of having the network effect and having basically power laws by which centralized agents can just swoop off most of the data and can make much better use of it, decentralized autonomous marketplaces put forth by Ali Yaya would be basically DAOs that can incentivize people to contribute their local knowledge, which are really, really difficult for the centralized agents to actually obtain, and through that create re-decentralizing forces. So this is all a mouthful. They wrote fantastic stuff on this. So please check out their work if you so will. So I gave you 3 ways in which I think we can expand crypto commerce to include AIs. One is federated privacy preserving machine learning. One is blockchain to actually incorporate agents in a trustworthy fashion into the game theory that we have to set up. And then the third one is AI DAOs. So now again, I want you to take 3 to 5 minutes on like, how can we extend the current crypto system that we're working in to gradually incorporate artificial intelligences? What are systems that you guys are working on, and how could basically think of it this way: how could the systems that you're all already working on be expanded to increasingly incorporate AI entities? It's a really difficult one, but we have to figure this out, guys, on the long run. Okay, so this is the final bounty that we're doing. So, final bounty: what's the most important technology or strategy for human AI cooperation? So, just think about the crypto system that you're working on. How can we incorporate more intelligent software entities into the mix? Okay, go, 3 to 5 minutes.
Are you going to take like comments out there again? Great.
Thank you.
The idea is to spitball. Your daughter's so like I had a competition and it's just sort of like on the bank logic. Yeah, so I that would be yeah, we want to like sort of
Okay, one more minute, and then I want your guys' ideas. This is a really difficult one. It's the highest hanging fruit. Okay, good. So just a quick plug on like, if you think this is interesting and exciting, there's a bunch of QR codes out there. One side of the paper shows you this. This is generally all the link dump within Foresight, our Discord, and so forth. If you click on this, if you type in this link, you will get redirected to this form, and you can fill out what you're interested in, whether it's Foresight, whether you want to join our Discord, our technology trees, which is our session tomorrow. Basically, how can you crowdsource and crowdfund tech trees and neurotech, biotech, nanotech, and space technologies, our Gitcoin bounties, the book, and our relevant sessions. So again, if you want to get involved with Foresight, and then I will welcome you to join tomorrow's sessions. And this is all on this QR code that's lying around everywhere around you. So just scan that, and that's the way to join. Okay, without further ado, oh, also by the way, I should say the other side of the paper that you have all around is the QR code for the book. And so if you want to join the Substack book club that's starting on May 1st, where we have a bunch of the keynote presenters that we just scroll through, come and actually discuss the technologies in a more structured fashion, then join us for this too. Okay, so who here wants to come up front and take a stab at the not so easy question of what's the most important crypto economic? What's the most important technology or strategy for human AI cooperation? We have a volunteer. Great.
I'm Kees, by the way. You can call me Keys if you're already speaking. Two things. So one, the whole notion of super intelligence and AGI, I think that's a bit of a hoax. So one book is The Myth for Artificial Intelligence by Stefan Larsen, where he goes to this, and showing that Bostrom puts an argument about that it's not really based on a lot of sound logic. So that's one thing, and even like people like Jan LeCoux today would say that AGI is meaningless, and if you look at human intelligence, it's actually super specific, right? It's not general at all. So that's one thing that I just wanted to put out there. But if you just replace AI by algorithm, we do have to worry a lot about algorithms, and there are already algorithms deployed out there today that are super dangerous. Like if we look at Facebook, as there's a humongous algorithm that's already out there, that's doing all kinds of things, that can be manipulated, right? Just H.R. McMaster's book, Battlegrounds, on how Russian security forces can influence the US elections, is a well-known story, but it's one example, you mentioned it. I think that's something we need to worry about today. And since we are increasing the intelligence and capabilities of the algorithm so fast, we do have to worry about it. So what can we do? I think the most important thing that we, as a crypto space, also should really think about is building in more privacy. Transparency is great. If you have transparency, however, you are essentially sharing your data with everyone. Like everyone can see your NFT, right? It's trivial. Privacy is the only real line of defense we have to very advanced algorithms that have many capabilities, you know, visual, audio, going to emails, going to internet, going to blockchains. If we really want to defend, we have to make things more private and make more use of cryptography and not just make everything open.
I love this. Yeah, we have a big, in the chapter before, we have a big section on privacy. You can already come to the front. And I think privacy is the type of thing, once you realize how important it is, it's too late. And this is the type of thing, it's important, it's invisibly important. And if you realize that you should have really done this privately, it's late. I believe for many of you guys how crypto early is already today, because that was all public, right? But we can now build better, we can build an audio, we can like use all of these systems. We can now move on to private layers, like, and we can do this today, right? There's no shortage of amazing knowledge enabled blockchains already out there that allow us not only to scale better, but also to have more private interactions.
AI on the blockchain could be used to create more efficient automated market maker systems that are actually competitive with centralized alternatives.
Yeah, okay, great. Do you have an example of? Doesn't exist yet, but.
I mean, like, you could just have a centralized trading strategy and put that on the blockchain and democratize access to it. populated.
Yes. Okay, very nice. Okay, over here.
So a little on the devil's advocate side, about to your point about privacy. While we all imagine privacy as this good thing we want to preserve, the part of the problem with Facebook, Google, and this algorithm is their privacy that we don't know what is happening there. So this is actually double-edged sword. And to be honest, while I'm a technological enthusiast, I think that AI need to be well understood, because like once unleashed, it will have a snowball effect, and then we actually cannot reasonably predict the outcome.
Yeah, and that's why in the previous chapter we talked about surveillance. So surveillance from below. David Brin, who you know is Transparent Society from David Brin, the book. Okay, so he basically talks about the fact that with monitoring and censoring getting increasingly cheaper, eventually everyone will just monitor everyone, and we will massively have to update our privacy norms. But the good thing is that currently it's a pretty asymmetric model. Link corporations are monitoring us. We don't monitor them backwards. At least in this future, we should demand that we have the same right to monitor them as they monitor us. Okay, we have another one here.
Hi, I'm Mike. So I think the answer is just decentralizing sovereign control of the data that we generate. So like the elephant in the room for a machine learning model is garbage in, garbage out. With some type of really advanced AI or AGI, we just need ways as humans to be able to control the data that we supply to some type of AI model. Because as time goes on, the world changes, and an AGI is going to have to adapt to the world around it. How's it going to do that? It's going to have to do that by incorporating kind of behavioral data that humans generate. So if we have ways or incentives to kind of have ownership of what we generate and provide to the model, I think we can make it.
Very nice. Okay, the opportunity for love it. Yes.
I think an important thing about intelligence is how it becomes, how it's incubated and created. And I think a lot of the current AIs are incubated within for-profit companies. So the incentive structure does not create something that's not necessarily good for humanity. So if you coordinate and build AIs based on a different incentive system, you can create using crypto networks, you can end up with much more positive externalities of creating an AI.
Love it. Okay, wonderful. We had, oh wow, okay, here we go. Wait, you didn't say anything yet, I think, so. And yeah, say your name if you want, and then maybe do one more, and then we'll wrap it up and give a future outlook.
Hi, I'm Nick. I think we should have DAOs develop AI, and then develop AI starting with bounties so that we don't necessarily have to do all the bounty work. So I see humans' role being we set the tasks for AI to do, and then we approve the tasks for missions. So AI becomes a worker for us, essentially.
Oh man, okay. And
The
so
AI rights guys are
again,
gonna hate you.
huh?
The AI rights guys aren't gonna like that.
Well, you already have, I think it was transposed, where you basically said that AIs can only get personal soup. If you had an AI that was just really good, like you talked about an art AI DAO, then eventually, and especially with private transactions, eventually maybe cooperating with an AI before you know it, because transactions are private. And if an AI just produces really amazing art and sells it off to you in a private way, maybe in the future, especially if things are private, we cooperate with AI DAOs much more than we may know. So yes. Okay, one final one. Anyone who hasn't said anything yet? Okay, from the back, yes.
When I think about AI, I think it's inevitable that one day it will be smarter than us or as smart as us. So what worries me is, what is our relationship with AI going to be like? And I think if they do inevitably one day become smarter than us, it would be really good if we had a good relationship with them. If they didn't want to take over the world, if they didn't want to be dominators. So I think they're going to take their example from us. How we treat them may end up being how they treat us. which is why I think we need to treat AI with love and everyone else.
Oh. Okay, yes, but you've already got, I just want to say, you didn't go yet at all, right? Okay, do you want to take one final comment here?
So my neighbor and I were talking about, and I don't know how this exactly would work, but I can envision a future where smart contracts on the blockchain provide the constraints for an artificial intelligence. So if we have a DAO managed artificial intelligence, it's using DAO creating and managing artificial intelligence through the use of smart contracts, we could hopefully prevent some terrible actions from happening.
Lovely, wonderful. Okay, this is, should be bounded by two. Okay, very quick one.
Okay, so I think the key word here is cooperation, which means both parties have the choice. And what the choice that we can make is which type of AI we want to work with. And AIs follow a code of conduct, which is game theory, which philosophers have been talking about for hundreds of years, but now we're actually able to code it. So one example is the Kant's min and max, or max and min algorithm, which maximizes the position of the person in the lowest class of society, or minimizes the damage that the opponent can cause in the next move. The algorithm will choose a move that allows the opponent to make the least worst move possible next. And there's a lot of different game theories that we can code AI into, and I think that if people know how the AI is working, what type of moral principles it's following, and they choose to work with that AI, then there's not really going to be any surprises. And people will have an option to choose whatever AI they want to, or whatever type of moral standards they want to work with, as long as, because it's going to be transparent and it can be coded.
All right, lovely. Okay, very cool. All right, well, I think we really made some progress here. This is most definitely the hardest one. Okay, well, without further ado, we have arrived at the end of the book. There's one final chapter which is on cooperating with alien intelligences. So if you want to go all the way out there, there are actually people thinking about the types of game theoretic structures that you have to put in place that may or may not also be applicable to cooperating with aliens. I won't go in there now, but who here knows A Simple Model of Grabby Aliens by Robin Hanson? It's a new post that will soon come out as a book on when we are actually likely to meet aliens. He calculates it very nicely. And then Anders Sandberg from Future of Humanity Institute gave a fantastic talk on the game theory that we need to figure out to cooperate with them better. So if you want to go all the way out there and cooperate with those intelligences, I invite you to take this on. I want to close with just the closing remarks of the book, which is, if there's no position outside of the game from which to evaluate the game, is it all relative? Not necessarily. We can still point to a vector that sets a trajectory through a very complicated space. To the extent that we succeed in thinking things through our next move, we believe that choosing our next actions along a planned trajectory will have a better than random correlation with norms that emerge in the universe descendant from those choices. If we simply valued minimizing suffering, we could set up a future that succeeds at doing so, for instance, by going extinct. If we value growth of cognition, creativity, and adaptive complexity, there are different, more complicated choices to make. In this book, we suggested that intelligent voluntary cooperation is a good heuristic for choosing amongst a set of choices and proposed a few moves for the game iterations. Nobody can tell from our current positions on the board where this game will end. This is a feature. After all, why play if you know the outcome? What we can do is set up the board so our descendants and our future selves can discover these wonders for themselves. So I invite you, if you're now interested in this, to subscribe to the book club, to check out our seminars that will be kicking off in May, or to claim the various Gitcoin bounties. We went through 3, but there's, I think, 9 in total. For each chapter starts with the Gitcoin bounty. I also welcome you to check out tomorrow's session. So today we talked all about the risks. Tomorrow we're going to discuss at 9 a.m. I know it's early, but we will make it worth it for you, we promise. We're going to be discussing technology trees. And so basically this arose from Within Foresight, we have these technology groups, right? These technology groups are already cooperating on a variety of technologies: biotech and rejuvenation, molecular machines toward atomically precise manufacturing, neurotech for brain-computer interfaces, space technologies for like everything from near-term to long-term space exploration, and then finally decentralized computing. We have experts group in these groups that meet through virtual seminars, workshops, but also fellowships and accelerators. So we are pushing these technologies forward. But still, for outside talent, it can be really hard to see how to plug in. This is why we are now building technology trees. And if you know anything about the game of civilization, then this is the kind of spirit in which we're building them. Aaron over there is our research director and is creating them. We have technology leads that is building these trees for every one of these technological areas. And here's already a prototype that we built for longevity. It's pretty simple, but the idea is that you go on there, you can already click on these individual nodes. They will then zoom up and show you a list of advocacy groups, labs, and companies working on this. The next step is that we're interviewing domain experts to put bounties on open challenges in each of these nodes. So how can we better make sense? How can we better make progress on different types of biomarkers and so forth? So we are already building them on the back end, but we invite you tomorrow to figure out how to best use crypto incentives to actually crowdsource those better. We also are not the only ones who thought about this. Trent McConaughey has the civilizational graph, which is a roadmap from here all the way to Dyson spheres. And Balaji has wrote about tech trees too. So we paired up with Balaji, we paired up with Trent, and we paired up with Evan from Protocol Labs to actually create a hackathon on how to create better technology trees. We're all judges, and so the deadline for those is March 1st. If you're interested in actually building these technology trees, we invite you to check out the hackathon and actually apply. You can meet our judges. We have every Tuesday, we have office hours with the judges on Discord. So if you are interested in building better tech trees, we invite you to do so. We do already have one. That is this one that is already editable. So if you already want to go in there and submit a few notes, then please go for it. But tomorrow we'll be really discussing on how can we create better systems in which we can model these technologies. And I'm telling you this because we also ultimately want to get better at figuring how to fund those. And so at Foresight, we're currently exploring a DAO that could be either something super simple as a syndicate DAO, or it could be something a little bit more advanced in which you can have reputation grade voting. And so if you're keen on actually setting up DAOs to fund early stage brain-computer interface research, the space exploration and so forth, then I welcome you to join tomorrow's session. I welcome you to check out this QR code. It has the link dump and the ways to sign up to stay up to date on the DAO, on the fund, on tech trees, on the book, etc. For now, I really want to thank you all for your time. I hope I see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. when we talk about DAOs and tech trees. We will make it worth it for you, and there'll be a bunch of really fun ways to win bounties and to plug in tomorrow too. Thanks a lot. I hope I see you in the book club. And yeah, thanks a lot for your time. If you enjoyed the book, please share it, claim the Gitcoin bounties. And this was really wonderful. I really valued your contributions. Please just apply to the Gitcoin bounties. Anything you said, I think is worthy of this bounty. It's 500 USD each and ETH. So thanks everyone, and I hope to see you tomorrow. So that's tomorrow at 9 a.m. I would love to ask maybe Eugene to come to the front and tell you what the DeSci track is up to starting now.
Yeah, sure. I'll just speak loudly in the meantime. But right after this, upstairs in 20 minutes, we're going to do this work. In 20 minutes, we're going to be doing a session upstairs where we're going to have 7 projects presenting. 3 that are going to be, I'm going to present on Script. We're going to have 3 projects doing exploring using Web3 tools for general science needs. And then we're going to have 3 projects specifically doing that are forming DAOs in some fashion and doing research in the DAO space. So we'll have a total of 7 presentations. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Upstairs, we're going to have the Foresight follow-up that Allison mentioned. Right after that, we are also going to be serving lunch right at the beginning. We will be doing a presentation from 2 independent researchers, a panel on the meta question of how do we provide peer review for such independent researchers, and then a small breakout session for around 45 minutes where we'll break out into small groups and actually discuss some questions around aligning incentives around research and around peer review.
So yeah, we have those. We might have a last minute thing on Friday come together on DeSci with the DeSci and Space panel. Governance, which is one of the groups that you'll hear from right after. We're going to be on a panel on Thursday, and there's a public goods or quick panel on Saturday as well. So yeah, lots of exciting things pretty much every day here at ETHDenver. So yeah.
You can find all these sessions with the DeSci at ETHDenver handle on the schedule. Okay, everyone, thanks for your attention. I hope to see you in our Discord.